Hey guys, I'm Mooni, and at the time of recording this intro, it is the 28th of July. This means that in about 2 days, a very popular game jam is about to start. If you're confused right now, a game jam is basically a competition between game developers to see who can make the best game in a specified amount of time. This game jam in particular is the Game Maker Toolkit Game Jam. It's quite big, with around 30,000 people having signed up, and we're only given 4 days to finish our games. Oh, and have I told you I'm doing this alone? Yeah, that's correct. I do in fact hate myself. Okay, so the timer hit 0 and the jam officially started. So, together with all the other contestants, I was set in the stream where they revealed the theme.
And this year's theme is just one word.
Oh no.
Loop.
Loop. Oh goddamn. And so it began. I started brainstorming, and honestly at first I didn't feel great about it. I was trying to come up with some related words and at some point ended up on a particle accelerator. Yeah, until it suddenly made me think of this, a horse. No, this is a horse in motion by Muybridge, effectively the grandfather of what we call sprite sheets in today's game development. Anyways, sprite sheets are just an array of images that we cut out and place one after the other at the exact same position. This creates the illusion of motion, and if we then cycle from the end back to the beginning, we create a loop. Simple, right? Well, here's the idea. A guy just standing completely still, right? He's just idling. Yeah, let's say he's idling. So he's moving up and down a bit, you know? He's idling. But he can't move, and it's like, okay, what the fuck do I do? So you introduce him to the game and you give him some frames to make a walk cycle. And then boom, he has a walk cycle. Then he can move like that way and that way. So he can like proceed in the game. And then there's like an obstacle. And it's like, oh fuck, what do I do now? And then you make a fucking jumping cycle so he can jump. Dude, this is the idea. This is kind of good, no? Yeah, sure bro, let's get to work. Coming up with this idea took me a small hour, and because the stream was at around 5 PM, I didn't have that long anymore until nighttime. So the first thing I needed was a character. I started drawing one myself until I realized it would be way smarter to just use an asset pack for now, so I could shift my attention to actually programming the game. I bought this pack by GMTK Games for €1, and just a small bit later I had a working character controller. As our player will need to make animations from the frames he finds throughout the map, the next thing I worked on is a simple item for the player to pick up. One small problem: where the hell does this item go? Well, for this I added a UI that opens up when the player presses tab. This is where you can view the inventory with all the collected frames. Next to this inventory, I also added a timeline where the player can drag frames into and see them appear on a viewport at the top. Oh, that's so cool. Now I know it looks pretty rough right now, but I was mainly focused on just getting it to work. And actually at this point it was already 2 AM, so I decided to get some healthy sleep.
Good night, girl. I'll see you tomorrow.
6 hours later, it is now 8 AM and time for a nice cup of tea. With that sorted, this morning I probably made the most important part of the whole game. You see, right now I'm able to place frames inside the timeline and create an animation. However, back in the game, the animation being played is way smoother. This is because at the start of this project, my dumbass thought I would be able to use the standard Unity animator. How foolish. The standard Unity animator works with predetermined animations that the developer makes and plays when they are needed. However, because I wanted the player to be creative, I thought it would be a great idea to allow them to make whatever animation they desire and then display this one in the game. The things I do to myself. 5 hours later, I managed to make it work, which is coincidentally also the exact moment my mom walked into my room. Ja, kijk. Dus wat er gebeurd is, dan maak ik basically je eigen animaties. Dus in de map kun je niks doen. Het is gewoon een stilstaande guy, je doet niks. Dus de introductie zou een beetje zijn, je krijgt frames, dus je klikt tab, en hier krijg je dan al je frames. En dan kun je hier kiezen welke animatie dat je wil maken. Dus de idle animatie, dat is gewoon de stilstaande animatie. Die kun je dan maken met dat hierin te slepen. Dan zie je het hier wat je aan het maken bent. En dan de tweede. En dan zie je dat hij begint te bewegen. En als je dan eruit gaat, zie je, oké, Mijn mannetje begint te bewegen. Dan ga ik terug. En kan ik naar de walk gaan. En zeggen, oké, we gaan hier nu een walk maken. En dan begint hij te lopen. En als ik dan begin te bewegen, gaat hij lopen. En dus nu, bijvoorbeeld als je nu een obstakel zou tegenkomen, like een muur of zo. Ja, dan moet je dus eerst al de frames verzamelen voor je spring te maken. En dan kun je erover springen.
Oké. Yeah.
Yeah, she didn't understand it that well. But anyways, it is now around noon, and for the next 2 hours I worked on some story elements. I came up with a story about a developer making a game which got corrupted by a computer virus. However, in the end I made the decision to leave it out due to a lack of time. But don't worry, it wasn't a complete waste, as I did end up using the typewriter effect for something else later on. The rest of the day I spent making the game look a little bit nicer, and while I was silently at work figuring out Unity's style system, I was brutally interrupted by my siblings who wanted me to come and play volleyball.
Kun je niet overtuigen?
Maar gasten, kinderen snappen het weer niet, hè?
Kun je niet overtuigen, man?
Snap wel, wij snappen juist dat er nog een leven buiten die shit is.
Maar ja, en 4 dagen.
Wat als je sterft, hè?
Ja, dan is het zo, ja.
Aan je computer?
Ja, maar ja, dan heb ik tenminste gedaan wat ik die. Ik vind het echt leuk dat jullie me zo leuk vinden.
Man, wij noden, man.
Maar ja,
Het is Juran, het is Barry.
gewoon even login doen, snap je?
Barry. Juran.
Like, what were they thinking? I can just spend 2 hours on something stupid like volleyball? And this during the biggest game jam I ever participated in. There is literally no chance that I'm even considering. Yeah, I went to play volleyball for 5 hours. But it's fine, I was back at around 11:30 PM and then worked for another 4 hours. I first made a grass texture, then I realized that my player character was too complex, so I went on itch, grabbed this silly looking guy and then modified him to better fit my game. I also updated the collectible frames and made the animation viewport look way better. A fun little detail is how when there are no frames in the timeline, the viewport is grayed out. Only when you add a frame, the viewport displays color, and this flickering red dot appears, which indicates that the animation is being recorded. And with that being said, the time is 3:30 AM, so I went for a little nap. I once again only got a whopping 6 hours of sleep before forcing myself out of bed, because you know what they say, the grind never sleeps. Fuck, the game is starting to look quite interesting. However, a very important part is actually guiding the player and introducing him to what the game is about.
Can I help you?
To do this, I came up with a character I named Zippy. He's a flying zip folder that is tirelessly traveling the corrupted world in search of anything that could use his help. After many years, he comes across our protagonist and helps him return his most fundamental actions, which include idling and walking. This is also where I used the typewriter effect that I made previously.
Oh no.
Then I fixed some bugs. The first one being the placed frames inside of the timeline disappearing when switching between animations. Oh, the idle frames get deleted. What the fuck? Another problem was actions being granted when there is just one frame in the timeline. This is an issue because I want the player to find all the frames before being able to perform the action. Fixing these bugs took me quite a while and were actually pretty technical. So, put one in, and he doesn't want to go, let's go! So, to relax a bit, I decided to add jumping to the game, which was rather easy as the system is already in place from the previous actions. And then you should be able to jump. Yes! Then I added some music and some footstep sounds for when the player is walking around. Next, a nice border for the animation viewport, and then I decided to finally fix this horrendous timeline which has been annoying me for quite a while now. I had already been color coding my animation frames, so what better way than to give every timeline the corresponding color. On top of that, I made the frame slots grayed out versions of the actual frames and added little animated arrows between them to make it extra clear. And this is also where I introduced to you the most disgusting thing I have ever created. Right now it doesn't look like much, however every time I add a new animation I will have to connect it back and forth to every other one. Oh god, what am I doing to myself, bro? Truly one of the animators of all time. To finish this day, I also added some status text under the viewport to show the player how well they are doing. It's a very simple solution that can be abused easily by spamming the frames until it works, but I didn't have much time and I just had to get something working. So if you can think of something that could have been better and maybe even more fun, let me know in the comments. I would be very interested to hear what you guys think. That being said, I actually got sick after the game jam and wasn't able to do much for about 2 weeks. For this reason, I'll have to cut the video short a bit, which is sad, but it is what it is. So, most of the remaining time I spent creating the map, which I of course underestimated massively and actually took a very long time. I also added a bunch of stuff like enemies, trampolines, and even a door. Also, adding new animations was definitely a fun experience, and the animator looked more cursed every couple hours.
The expandability of this is horrendous. In fact, there is no expandability.
I also watched an old video of the man himself on parallax backgrounds and managed to make something quite interesting. Lastly, I made a somewhat decent H page, and with 10 minutes left I was officially done. About a week later the results were in, and out of around 10,000 people I managed to score pretty good. But anyways, sorry to cut the video short like this. It's been a bit of a struggle for me to get back into making videos, but yeah, I'll try my best and I hope you still enjoyed. If you want to play the game for yourself, you can find a link to my H page in the description. Alright, see you later. Mwah.